Hello and welcome again to Just Start Walking and You Get There. I'm your host, as every week, Carrie Braggs. You know me now. I know I have at least 15 or 16, subscribers now. I'm getting up there. I'm hitting it out the park. Okay, so, people are getting jealous because, they're subscribing to me and not you. Well, I think somebody else just subscribed. Now I've got 17, so watch out, okay? So I just want to throw that out there. But once again, as I promised, part two of our show from last week, as we were sitting up talking with Sister Mia and her colorful career background, once again, at a young age.
Yeah.
And so that was, as I said, that was pretty impressive looking at your resume, but even more impressive, just your attitude to not be afraid to chase your dreams and have that sense of focus and determination on what you want and to go after it, because I think a lot of times people are right there, but sometimes they need a little more encouragement, or honestly they need to see somebody else do it.
Yeah.
So it's like when you see somebody else do it, then especially for me, I'll sit up and say, oh, well, they did it, and I'm sitting here and I'm listening. Okay, what did they do? I'm taking notes and everything. So I hope you have a pencil and pad out taking notes.
Right.
But we stopped last week on part number one, and she was about to transition into where she is now and how she got into radio. So I hope you have your pens and paper, your popcorn and Kool-Aid and everything, and have a seat and just chill out for a minute and let her go forth. Yeah. So we were talking about how you transitioned into radio. You left off, you were saying that the job you had taken, that was something you had aspired to get, six-figure salary, and then you were saying, but that's not what God wanted for you.
Not at
Did you
all.
hear that, everyone out there? Now,
And he let me know.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Now, I know everybody out there is not a Christian, but it's one of those things that if you are a Christian, to pay attention to the fact that we want to make sure we are lining up with God. And Sister Mia, she realized she was not lining up with God and being where He wanted her to be. And so she took action. So I just want you to pay attention to that as she goes forth to finish her story. So you can go forth, my sister. Let me get out the way.
All right. But no, as we were saying before, I do want to tell people that you mentioned the six-figure salary, and I aspired to do that. I saw another lady that looked like me that was aspiring to that. She was my mentor, and I talked about her in the last podcast. But so to me, it made it real for me, and I aspired to that. I aspired to that title, and I went, and real early on, God let me know that this is not, this place and this job at this time is not for you. And the way He let me know, because some people may want to know, how does God let you know?
Right.
I couldn't sleep at night. I was having anxiety. I'd never experienced anything like that before in my life. And the bottom line is the values of that company didn't align with mine.
See, and
so I knew
big.
that, and so I couldn't continue to be somebody that I wasn't, and because I couldn't rest at night, I couldn't sleep at night, and I was not myself. I didn't see my family for 2 months. I was physically here, but to be present, I wasn't present for I know it was 2 months when I came out of that thing, and I'm like, I can't, this is not for me, and so it was bold, and it took courage to walk away from $100 and something thousand as if it was 10.
Yeah, that took a lot of courage, because it's a lot of people who will compromise their values and
Oh, for
say,
sure.
hey, hey, I can't go get another job
Yep.
making this amount of money,
Yep.
and just things like that. Or it's not that big of a deal because
Mm-hmm.
once I leave work, then I'm fine. I'm back being who I am.
Mm-hmm.
When that's not true.
Conform.
Right, and they conform within that. And so I think that was bold because, once again, the majority of people will look at you and say, what are you doing? I mean, you're making all of this money.
Yeah.
But once again, God was leading you, and as you see throughout all the Bible all the time, when you are where God wants you to be, He blesses you. That's where the scriptures come in talking about your cup running over.
Yeah.
And He'll open up the windows of heaven and pour out abundance of blessings that your
have
barns will not have room to store them up. And it's like, can you just imagine all these blessings? But you have to do what you did to receive them.
That's exactly right. And then I would be wrong not to even mention that I did have a supportive spouse. And so we had to have the discussion.
That's even
and
bigger.
he supported me in my decision. And he said, whatever you want to do. And when he said that, I was free. It was like chains had just broke, and I felt good going in the next day with my letter, of resignation to resign. And I just felt like that was my biggest concern. What would he think? What would he say? I'm contributing this huge amount of money, and again, he was like, whatever you need to do. And when I tell you we have not missed one beat, nothing. I mean, it was a seamless transition.
Right.
With just his salary, so God is real and God is good.
Yes, He is. And I'm glad you mentioned that point because, it's one thing if you are living your life and you're doing these things, but once again to say, hey, I know this is going on. I'm not sleeping well at night because I know this is not lining up with my values, and to come to your husband and you bring this up and it's not because you could have been
definitely
trying to be bold and say, I can't do this, and he, well, no, we
Right.
need
Do
that
you
money,
understand?
and you can't,
Right.
no, you
It was
can't
never-
hold on to it a little
Yep.
longer, and all of these different things.
It was
But
never that.
that's even bigger because once again, He's there with you.
Yep.
That's that one accord
Yep.
that it talks about in the Bible. And for our viewers at home, if you're married, you're within those relationships. That's the one accordness that God talks about in the Bible, that we move as one. So for her to be feeling these things and for her husband to come alongside her, that meant they came together, one mind, one heart, and they moved forward. And that's a big thing that we need to realize and understand within our marriages. And so that just, that speaks volumes to me. And I hope
exactly
you're
right.
encouraged by that point out there in TV land.
Right. Yeah. So, yeah.
Well, no, I was going to say, go ahead and continue.
Yeah. Okay. So then I'll transition over to radio because it's
Okay.
completely different from what we were doing, and so I had a desire, and what I will tell people to take time to search within yourself your desires. What do you really want to do? Because I think we get so busy, and my husband and I have been using this booked and busy. We get booked and we get busy. You know what I'm saying? Like, and so we don't
like
have
that.
time to really just
Right.
think about what is it really that who am I?
Right.
Who am I? Always wanted to do radio. Was never really as confident in doing it because I always say like I'm country than a sugar sandwich, right? So my grammar, you know what I'm saying? Like
Right. I'm with you. I'll be like that too. They're like, what?
Sometimes we get stopped because
Right.
what if I don't use the right words or so we get stopped.
Right.
And so again, having the right spouse to encourage
Right.
and to help to be okay with supporting everything that you want.
Right.
Just your heart desires. He would often say, you should be on the radio. You have a very unique perspective. People need to hear what you have to say. And so that gave me the confidence I needed. And so then it comes to what radio?
Right.
What radio station? And we have a couple radio stations here, black radio stations here. And this one guy in particular, he would be on the radio, and he had the show, the Keeping It Real show. And I talked to my husband, and I was like, I should reach out to him, this guy, and maybe take him to for coffee or to lunch.
Right.
And so I want to tell the listeners out there, if you want something, you need to give something. And so I was going to pay for the lunch. You know what I'm saying? If you want something, go get it. But you need to give something. So I called the guy up. And I was like, hey, I know you got the Keeping It Real show. Would love to sit down and talk to you about radio. And maybe we can do lunch someday. Maybe you can give me some tips on how to move forward with this. What do I need? And he was like, oh, I would love to meet with you.
Wow.
He's like, just, look at your calendar. Give me a call back. Let me know when. In this time, within a week's time or 2 weeks, the guy called me back and said, hey, how would you like to be my co-host?
Wow.
Just ran, I had not even had lunch with this man yet.
Okay, so let me stop you right there.
Right.
So you just, you reached out to him and told him that that you want to have lunch with him, get a few pointers from him.
Yeah.
He agreed, but you all hadn't had the lunch yet. Then he called you a few weeks later and asked, how would you like to be his co-host?
Within a week or two.
Okay.
Would you like to be my co-host?
Okay, people, do you see this? Do y'all see this at home? She is a walking miracle. Okay, this is God. This is how you see God moving, where it's just like, where did that come from? And it wasn't a situation, once again, where you got to know somebody. That's how the world operates. You got to know somebody and you got to do all these things with it. But she just had a desire, being obedient to the Lord, and just went forth, sent out an email. Yeah. And now a few weeks later, she was looking for a few pointers. Right. Just a few pointers. And now she's being offered a co-host position on the show. Yeah. Okay, let's get back to the nitty-gritty. All right, go ahead. Just want to share that with them.
I do want to back up and say this, because I believe in vision boards. Mm-hmm. I believe in writing down things that I want. And I still today carry around this radio show that I wanted. I wrote it out. I wrote out the radio show. I wrote out the different topics I wanted to talk about. I wrote all these things out. And so when I look at those things even today, it's incredible to me. And so what I would tell people to do is take time to figure out your heart's desires, right? What God brought you here for. Just sit down and get quiet. What do you love? What is it? Who are you?
Right.
And if you want to do something, another thing I would tell somebody from this experience is to think about who's doing what you want to do. Mm-hmm. Pick up the telephone and call them. Mm-hmm. And say, hey, this is who I am. They don't have to know you. This is what I'm trying to say. They don't have to know who you are. This is who I am. I love what you're doing. And can you give me any tips on how to do it? How do I get there?
Right.
What do I need to do? Because that's all I wanted this man to tell me. He had no idea. But let me tell you this, because this is amazing too. When I started at that radio show station as his co-host, I was there. All he had to do was tell me what time to be there. I was there on time. He got to the point where he could count on me to be there. And within probably 2 months of being his co-host, I became the host of the show.
Wow.
And he then said, why don't you be the host and I'll be your co-host?
So is that the gentleman who's your co-host now?
No, this was a guy that's
okay.
yeah.
Okay.
He was fortunate enough. The guy that I came in with, he was fortunate enough to get another radio show where he would get to DJ, and that's what he loves to do.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so talk radio is my thing.
Right.
And so he was like, okay, why don't you produce the shows? And then I come in and help you out.
Wow.
And within 2 months. So what I'm saying is nothing is impossible. I didn't have a radio background. All I had is courage enough and boldness to go out and seek the people that was already doing it. And T.D. Jakes said, you don't always, he said, sometimes you can be the reaper. You don't have to be the sower.
Right.
Because people have gone on before you and sowed seeds. You can come behind them and reap some benefits.
Right.
Right. And so I was able to reap the benefits. The show was already together. All I had to do was slide in there.
Right. And that reminds me in the Bible a lot of times when like he would have them come in and, you know, they would have a battle or wars or different things, and they would pick up where this other city was. So they would come in and this would be their city, or this would be their land. And so it just follows that mindset in that place where it's just like, hey, you don't have to come in and build it. You just have to be willing to
maintain
go
it.
right.
Go
just
for
go
it.
forth.
Go for
You
it.
know, just go
pick it
forth.
up where they left off.
Right.
You know?
And so that's and so now at this point in time, I mean, how are you feeling?
Right.
Because I know you were just probably just like, wow. I mean, because you know, you go 2 weeks. You know, he calls you actually be his co-host. Then 2 months, he tells you to take over and everything. So how are you feeling right now?
Okay, so in that space, because you know, here's the one thing about God, he works suddenly, right? And so I always tell people to put their seatbelt on. When you start asking for something, you gotta buckle up.
Right. Right.
Because he works suddenly. You know, I had no idea that this was getting ready to happen. But when you, and this is another lesson from that, be careful what you speak into the universe, because things tend to happen.
Right.
You know? And so, but I was ready. But I was scared too. But I went scared. You know, you just go scared.
Good, right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right,
like, it's like, oh my gosh, because I'm putting myself out there for people to judge me.
Right, and you got your critics and everything.
That's exactly right.
But I like what
exactly
you said,
right.
you know, that you went scared.
Yeah.
And some people are scared and won't go.
And won't go. You stuck.
So I like that. I like that. You went scared.
But I felt like this is my ministry. Like, I just feel like I know that I have a very unique perspective, and I feel like I could help save people. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying like save a life. I'm talking about save you from certain things, or you know, just I've been very unique life. You know what I'm saying?
Because you putting like you said, you have these different perspectives, and you bring forth topics on the show where sometimes there's not a lot of information out there. And so, you know, sometimes that just by giving people that information, they be like, oh, I didn't know that, or this is a place that can help me with that, or you know, so like you say, yes, that can save a life and change
and give people the courage and the
somebody.
confidence to go for what they want. So many times we live in a culture where we, you know, there's something to going to a 9 to 5.
Right. It's
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's just the mindset.
That mindset. And it's okay to do something different. And I'll tell you this, because every year I do these things for the last couple years, 2-3 years. I've been doing this thing where I don't have a New Year's resolution, but I get a word, and I try to, you know, do this word all year. Okay. So a couple years ago, it was tickled. That was my word. I wanted to be tickled. You know, I wanted to be that year to just be. I wanted to have fun. You know, and I had a ball. Last year, 2017, my word was intentional.
Mm.
And so I wanted to live intentionally.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I sat down and I thought about, as the year went on, what that looked like for me, I had to sit down and figure out, who am I to the core?
Mm-hmm.
Like, who am I? So if someone asks me now, who are you? I educate, I empower, and I impact. That's what I do without trying.
Okay, so educate,
empower,
and impact.
That's exactly right.
I like that.
Without even trying. That's just who I am that's what God made me.
Right. Okay, and I see that. And like you said, by you saying that's who I am, that lets people know that, hey, this is just natural to me. This is just a part of my spirit. This is just part of how I am as a person. Because I kind of feel like that way with me, with encouraging.
Right.
It just comes out if somebody is talking about having a bad day or something. It's like, I'm just, oh, come on now. It'll be all right. And I, pop up with something positive to try to get them on track. And like you say, I'm not even trying to do this. I just see that this person is down and out. Mm-hmm. And these words can help them, and also I believe them too. Yeah. It's not, it's not one of them where like I'm just gonna say something. Let me make them feel better. But no, I actually believe them, and I'm like, hey, don't let that stuff.
And that's who you are, because everybody doesn't have that gift. You know what I'm saying? They just don't. And I understand, because I was able, when my word was intentional, I was able to say, what does that look like for me? How am I going to live an intentional life? Right. And so I'll tell you what came out of that for me. What I accomplished last year was a women's conference.
Okay.
Here in Decatur, and it was called Power in Pumps. Is what's the name of it? Power in Pumps. And when I tell you, it was incredible. And I wanted to, because of my unique background and being an at-home mom during some of this time, I worked in corporate. I was able to go to conferences, get encouraged to come back and, just be bad at my job, just kill the job, Right. But what I noticed being an at-home mom during that time, that what is it in this for us? What were the conferences for us? Mm-hmm. I wanted to create something from the stay-at-home mom to the CEO.
Okay.
And everyone could come to and get something.
Right.
I didn't want it to be like a church conference or anything, because people tend to not come because of this denomination or that church is doing it, so that's for that church. Right. I wanted every woman, regardless of their race, their age, their career status, to be able to say, you know what, there's something in it for me.
Right.
And so that came out of it. And when I tell you, it was incredible. It was powerful. It was something that I don't think that we've had here in this city. We've had conferences, but they were, church conferences or work conferences.
Right. And it was that, but you brought it all together. So you erased all the lines.
That's exactly right. Everybody was free. And when I tell you, these women they came to, and so that's another thing that I'm doing now. That's going to be an annual event for us. So I'm breaking into that now. But the path back to radio, man, I'm telling you, all the careers that I've had, all of that was for radio. I'm able to talk intelligently about so many different areas that I had no idea it was going to all come back together.
Right.
And I was going to have to share with the people. And he chose me, I felt, because he knew I didn't mind sharing it. I don't mind. When I get something, I'm supposed to let you know, all of y'all know. I'm not supposed to keep this to myself.
Right. That's
Some
how
good
I
stuff
am.
out here. You
Right.
can't keep
I
it.
can't wait to go tell people when I find out something.
Right.
I'm like, did you know? Sometimes they're like, yeah. I'm like, but this is good stuff.
Right.
This could help you get to the next level.
I could give you something to live by, or I
Right.
could tell you that I bought a shirt at Walmart for $2. I mean, I don't.
Exactly. Yeah. That's
I just want somebody to know. I want to
Right.
share. You know.
right. Because
So,
I
yeah.
would be thinking, because I'm like that. When somebody comes up and tell me something, I'm just like, wow. Thanks for telling me that.
Right.
Because this is some
We're
good
supposed to
information. Yeah.
Carrie, we are not here for us. We need each other. This is
Okay.
not. All of this is not about us.
Okay. There
Us
you go.
sitting here talking has nothing to do with us.
No, this is about us coming together
For you.
the people out here.
And our prayer is that if you get something from us, that you go and share it with someone else. You don't
Right.
keep it to yourself. You go share it to, we're living a legacy. That's how you leave a
Right.
legacy. We think about money being a legacy. That has very little to do with legacy.
Right.
We are, if I can give you any type of information to help you to be better,
Mm-hmm.
that's what it's about.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And I just totally agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, these are some of the things why this show was created. Just start walking and you get there, to bring forth guests who they've done some things to where you can sit up and you can be encouraged and know. And as you see, that's why I wanted to separate the shows to show what was going on beforehand, and then let the radio part stand on its own to see how she got to that point. And so if you could, for our listeners, could you give them the information for the station and the times that the show is on?
Right.
And I believe the conference as well that you have coming up this year.
Okay, so we are looking for the conference to be the last Saturday in October.
Okay.
That date is not concrete, but that's the date that we're looking at.
Okay.
So the last Saturday in October, it's called the Power and Pumps. So you'll be able to go to www.thepowerandpumps.com
Okay.
for the information. DecaturRadio.com is the radio website. So www.decaturradio.com. And my station is 95.5, Magic 95.5. My show is the Keep It Real show, comes on Saturday mornings at 9 o'clock a.m.
Okay.
Every Saturday morning, 9 o'clock a.m.
Okay. And I'll make sure that I have those websites at the end of the video, so if you didn't catch all of that, because remember, you're supposed to have your pencil and pad writing everything down, but that's cool. I'm going to let you slide. I'm going to put it at the end of the video so you can tune in to the show, and you can be looking for the Power and Pumps. So you can be looking for that conference later on this year.
Before we go, can I say something else?
Sure.
Okay, so just start walking and you'll get there. What I would recommend that you do is get clear about what you want to do.
Right. Okay.
Right? Get clear. Don't be afraid to try different things. If you can't really get clear, don't be afraid to try different things. Look around to see if there's somebody doing something that you would like to do, and reach out to that person. And before you do any of what I just said, sit down and say a prayer and ask God to help you and guide you in the right direction.
And I truly agree with that. That was some great advice, and I hope that everyone takes that to heart, and you start working on those things and be encouraged. And as she said, don't be afraid. Put everything into place that she just laid out there. And remember, as she said, we bring it before God first, because bringing it to Him first, that allows Him to lay everything out for you, because now He has you on the path that He wants you to be on, and He will clear the way, He will open the doors, and He will do everything. All you have to do is just start walking, and you'll get there. And remember, keep moving with meaning. So I'm your host, Carrie Braggs, and I thank you for Sister Mia being on the show, Sister Mia Tyus being on the show with us. And remember, check out her websites and check out her radio show every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. So
Thank
you
you.
all have a good
Bye-bye.
weekend, and we'll be back for the next show. Oh, I didn't. Okay,
Yeah.
go ahead. Let's go.